Hey guys, this is episode number 12. I'm Eric.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are
Notes
and Nerds. Hey guys. So in today's episode, we're talking about our love of the retro consoles. These are wonderful machines. I mean, Nathan, what was the console that you grew up on?
My love was the Nintendo.
Nintendo Entertainment System was an excellent machine. I mean, it really revived the whole game industry back in the 80s because, I mean, the game crash of 1983-84, Nintendo came and revived the whole industry. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar company or industry.
Well, Eric, what was your game? What
My
was your
console,
love?
My console was my first console, and that was the Atari 2600. I mean, I remember being yay tall, you know, about 5 or 6 years old, carrying around my teddy bear with me everywhere, going to a local department store in Falls City, Nebraska, and they had an old Atari 2600 kiosk set up. And the game that was actually playing that moment was River Raid by Activision. Being 5 or 6 years old, and this is my first time seeing video games, was the most lifelike, realistic thing I've ever seen, except, you know, for real life. I mean, it sounded like a real airplane flying through a canyon river, blowing up ships and tankers and helicopters. And it looked so vividly real, and now I look back on it, you know, and realize, wow,
That was cheesy.
It was not that realistic. But you know, as a child, you know, you get into it, and ever since then, it's been awesome. So how are you getting into your collection? I mean, do you collect, or do you just have certain ones that you fondly remember?
I like to collect as much as possible, and I like to get as many systems as I can. There's some games that, you know, I'll buy because I love playing them. Some of them I just buy because I just like to look at them.
Yeah. I mean, some of these old classic games, especially Atari games, had some of the best, most amazing cover art. With Atari 2600, the art really did define the game. I mean, back in the day with Atari 2600, you had to have a killer imagination. Because, I mean, like, for example, one of the big popular games that was basically the granddaddy of RPGs was Adventure on the Atari 2600. Your character was nothing more than a square block, a yellow square block. And on the artwork, there was this massive, cool-looking dragon, and your character being this, you know, awesome knight with a big sword. But in the game, you're just a block.
Yeah.
So the artwork kind of sells the idea of what your character is going to be, and your imagination takes over and turns that block into that amazing knight. So, I mean, that is a great reason to collect and just go from there, just look at. But, I mean, I like collecting simply because I love video games. I want to build a nice collection. I've actually shaved down my collection over the years because of stuff that, you know, didn't speak to me. Like, I had a Nintendo 64. I mean, it was a great console, but there was only a couple games that I really, really enjoyed. Star Wars, the WCW games, WWF games, and about a couple others, and that was it.
Some of you guys might laugh at collecting these, but I'll tell you this. These right here are no different than classic cars.
Oh, yeah.
No different than the convertible, the Cadillac, the Mustang. There is no difference. So if you can love cars and you can get the wrench work, believe me, you can be into these things and do the screwdriver work.
See, with consoles, it's just like using cars as the analogy. It's an appreciation for it. And in this case, it's not only the appreciation of the hardware, but the appreciation of the art. Video games early on, from in the 70s, 80s, and even part of the 90s, video games were looked at as cheap toys for kids, or expensive toys for kids, depending on which system, like Neo Geo, which was an expensive, well, it wasn't an expensive console, games that were $200 and up,
Yeah, that was.
because there was arcade ports. But with classic games, there's a lot of amazing art into them, because I mean, especially Atari, look at the old Pitfall.
Oh yeah.
The ingenuity going into, from just a regular
Out of all
ugly
the
block.
Atari games, Pitfall was my favorite.
Yes, it really defined a lot of the adventure games later on as well. But collecting it's such an appreciation. One is nostalgia for me and for the Nintendo, but it's the appreciation of the art.
Yeah, I mean, you kids now, Halo is basically, Halo was our Mario Brothers, was our Pac-Man, was our Pitfall. I mean, we didn't have that kind of graphics or sound effects. And you know what? That stuff was as cool as Halo is now to you guys.
Games and the excitement and the fun of a game isn't the graphics and the sound necessarily. It's about gameplay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, a lot of the old Nintendo and Atari games, there's a lot of gameplay. I remember one summer back when in '94, I fractured my ankle, so I was bedridden for a lot of the time, or at least chair-ridden. I rolled the score on Asteroids 4 times. Playing through once, lost 1 life, but rolled my score 4 times. And the only reason why I rolled it 4 times is because I could have gone 5 and 6 or 7, but I got bored.
I am an old school gamer, and you know why I'm an old school gamer? Because these new games bore me. These games right here were so hard and
God.
so complicated.
Your achievement for a game like this,
Oh my
today
God.
you get achievement for you picked up the tablet. And these days your achievement was you beat Contra. And you got to brag, and you go to school and you're like, dude, Contra, I just totally whooped it and beat it, and here's a picture from my TV. And all the kids are going like, you're awesome, dude. Nowadays it's like you beat the game and it's like, yeah, I did too, but I got the downloadable content that really totally kind of makes it different now. And it's like,
There was some games that were just so hard to work with, like
Ghosts and Goblins is the most infamous game of
Ninja Turtles. The 3rd level was freaking nasty.
Yeah, but Ghosts and Goblins among all gamers is the notoriously hardest game because
Battletoads.
that one was right after right there next to it.
It's pretty
Ghosts and
nasty.
Goblins was the hardest game ever though.
One that I love, but it was always a pain in the back. But if you guys can remember Domino's version, the Noid, they had a video game called Yo Noid. But the bad thing is you get hit once by anything, you start the whole level over. That's why I say these kind of systems take skill, they take the want to do it, it takes patience. The stuff now, kind of sort of maybe. But this stuff was school. This is what being a gamer is about.
Exactly. Now, collecting games and consoles. I mean, you can get started pretty much anywhere, but we're gonna, like for example, you can go to yard sales, garage sales,
You can go to flea markets, stuff like that.
thrift stores.
Thrift stores. Then you got the auctions, online auctions. Yeah.
Exactly. And then last but not least is your brick and mortar stores like Game Exchange in St. Joseph, Missouri, or Vintage Stock in Topeka, Kansas. We both have our personal favorites. I've been to both of them, and I still prefer Vintage Stock. Hey guys,
Game Exchange.
hit me up. But with garage sales, yard sales, flea markets, thrift stores, you're going to usually get the run-of-the-mill games. You're going to find a lot of Pac-Mans, Miss Pac-Mans, Donkey Kongs, E.T.
But even with that,
You still find
you
the gems.
will find the gems.
Online auctions like eBay and Listia, you're usually going to find exactly what you're looking for because everybody's selling something. Brick and mortar stores, except for GameStop, because they only do the latest and greatest, but the ones that sell everything, those are the ones where you're going to find not just the run-of-the-mill, but a few of the extra. You're going to find gems pretty
Some
easily.
rares, some imports.
But you really want to go with the online markets.
Yeah.
So now with the collection or collecting, You're going to want to get consoles, obviously, but there's a problem with consoles. Even though these things are built to last, they still die. I have a 1977 original heavy sixer Atari 2600. For those not knowing what that is the very first run of the 2600. It still works, but one of these days I'm afraid it's going to die on us. There are ways around that, like going to hyperkin.com. You can actually get a 3-in-1 retro console called the Retron 3. Plays Super Nintendo, NES, and Genesis all in one system, or like the Atari Flashback 3 that has the games built in. Now, it's not emulation, it's actually a system on a chip where they basically took the original hardware, shrunk it down. And it's the original hardware, but because of advancements in technology, it's able to shrink it
Same
down.
inside, different outside.
Sometimes not even that much different.
Nah, none.
But
Yeah.
and all the games are built into it, or in the case of the Retron 3, you can actually use the original console cartridges. It's a great way of not having to worry about ruining the original hardware, yet still having fun with the original games.
There we go.
Next up, we're going to talk about a little something on playing your games with other devices.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. You got my money?
Thank you.
All right, guys, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about emulation.
Whoa. What's the difference between emulation and homebrew?
Good question. A lot of people don't know the difference. The difference is with homebrew is, let's say you have a old console, like let's say the Nintendo, and there is this great idea for a game you have that nobody's ever made before. So you get down on your computer, you start coding away, you make the game yourself, and you then upload it to the internet for everybody to play, but the game never existed before until you did it, and you made it at home. Homebrew.
Okay.
Emulation is when you're taking an existing game like Mario Duck Hunt and playing it on a computer using, emulated hardware. So, with emulation, before I get too far into this, there's a lot of legal stuff that makes it difficult. Emulating the hardware is actually legal as long as you own the hardware. Emulating the software is tricky. If you have something that you can plug in a cartridge that connects to your computer, that can suck out the software and make a copy of it on your computer, it's legal because you own the cartridge that you're putting the ROM, is what it's called, the ROM on the computer. But let's say you still own the game, but you go online and download it. It's in one of those legal bees nests where you own the game and you just don't own the hardware to make the copy.
Yeah.
You're just taking somebody else's copy. It's just really weird. Some say it's legal, some say it's not legal. It's just a really weird kind of thing. So you got to be careful with emulation. But with emulation, I love doing it because it lets me have my collection. I can bust it out every now and then to get the old cramps in the finger from holding a control pad like that. But not always is that where you want to go. You want to be able to, and especially if you want to take it with you anywhere. I have emulation on my tablet, on my laptop, and my PSP. And with emulation, it gives you the opportunity to play these original games 90% of the time as they originally were. Sometimes there's a few bugs here and there because of...
As I do on my Wii.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll come across a bug here and there that, the game wasn't properly emulated. Like in Journey Escape, Starfield back doesn't come through correctly on emulated software hardware. But the original, even the original Atari 2600, big blocky one versus the Atari 2600 Junior, Journey Escapes, the Starfield and back on the old hardware had more stars, but on the newer hardware actually was missing a few. Kind of weird. But anyway, emulation gives you an opportunity to play games that you might not have had an opportunity to play before. Like the super, ultra rare stuff that, you know, there was only a limited number and nobody else has one, and if you try to buy it, you're spending thousands of dollars. Or prototypes.
Another thing is imports. It's very easy to get imports, and some of those imports are very good.
And because they're not, but with imports you got the issue of localization, but sometimes that's not even an issue. It's just, you know, again, getting hold of them is really difficult, and sometimes the easiest way is emulation. Now, we're not condoning emulation because it is considered piracy. You know, if you don't own the title and you get it, no, shame on you. And now, kind of tie it all off, you want to do emulation to get into the whole retro gaming.
To test it out.
How do you do it? Google it. The easiest way to find an emulator for Atari, TurboGrafx, Nintendo, or anything, type in the console's name, like TurboGrafx 16, emulator. Jaguar, emulator. Atari, emulator.
Emulator.
You'll find a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them out there. You know, everybody's got a different taste for what they want and certain feature sets. So you got to kind of play around, find the one you like, and also hardware compatibility for your machine that you're using too.
Most definitely.
And as far as finding the ROMs, Google it. We're not going to tell you how to find it. We're not even going to link it on our website. We are going to put some links on the website though.
We can't condone, but we will say it's good.
Exactly. Now, if you go to our website, notesandnerds.blogspot.com, we don't have the www.com yet. We're
Working on it.
We're going to have some links on there for you for a couple different websites, including the hyperkin.com to get that Retron 3 if you want it. We're not getting any commission off of it. Plus a few others here and there we might come
We're
across.
gonna hook you up, man.
Exactly. So with that, all right guys, that concludes episode number 12 where we talked about our love of retro consoles. But hey, don't forget to check out some of our previous episodes, like the episode where we talked to Jeff Peterson,
Ninja Turtles.
or even our Spider-Man episode,
Our bloopers and our segues.
like the Terminator.
And Spider-Man clips.
Exactly. So guys, don't forget
To like, subscribe, watch, share, and kumbaya, my little